Folks, there's a lot going on in Washington, D.C., and there's a lot going on in New York. We have a very special guest to discuss all of that with us, Congressman Randy Fine. He's a Republican from Florida's 6th Congressional District, one of the newest members of the House of Representatives. He won in a special election there. Donald Trump tapped him to take that seat. Used to serve in the Florida legislature, and he's known as the Hebrew Hammer. He's been hard on some of the really important issues to Floridians, like the LGBT extremism. He's definitely made a name for himself as somebody who's not afraid to speak his mind. And on that note, he's in the news right now for some comments he made about the New York mayor candidate, Zoran Mamdani. And I want to quote here before I bring on the congressman. He says about these comments involving Israel's war with Hamas. He says, "This is nauseating. Mamdani is little more than a Muslim terrorist. It's a disgrace he was ever granted citizenship. It should be stripped and he should be deported to the Ugandan, won't say the word, he came from." Congressman Fine, welcome to the program. Thank you very much for joining us. Tell us how you really feel about Mamdani.
Well, look, I always felt that if I was going to do this job, I was going to say what I think, because otherwise, why do it? And the fact of the matter is, Mandani lied to become a citizen of this country. He did not disclose his affiliation with the Democratic Socialists. He did not disclose his love for Muslim terrorists. If he had, he would never have become a citizen just 8 years ago, which is a much bigger problem. Why can someone who just became a citizen become mayor of New York? But he is not an American. He is not someone who cares about America. He is someone who has come here to destroy America. And we just learned today that his own mother says that he is not an American. So I think it is a disgrace that he could possibly become the mayor of the greatest city in the world, the biggest city in America. And I think it's a real problem. And I think it speaks to the concern we should have as Americans. Because the fact of the matter is, the only reason he has a chance to win is because foreign-born Americans are voting for him overwhelmingly. Americans, whether you're black, white, Asian, Hispanic, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, if you were born in the United States, you're not voting for this guy. It's people who just came here who are. And it speaks to a real problem that we have with who we have imported into this country over the last several decades.
Yeah, and New York City has one of the highest rates of foreign-born folks, approaching 40%, I understand. It's huge. And, of course, Mandani's not the only one with similar issues. One of your colleagues in Congress, Ilhan Omar, has been reported to have basically not been truthful in her immigration application. Seems like this is a real problem. But I want to turn back to Mamdani just for a moment. For a long time, people were warning about Islamo-Marxist, Islamo-Fascist, and that was kind of dismissed as just fear-mongering. And yet Mamdani really seems to bring together the socialist, the Marxist side, and the Islamist side, which I think to some people that sounds contradictory. But what does this say about the Democratic Party and the future of the Democrat Party?
Well, it's real. They call it the Red-Green Alliance, the red being communist, the green being Islamist. And it is real, and he embodies it. So someone who not only wants to seize private property, make everything free, get rid of the police, but at the same time bring Sharia and Muslim supremacy to the country. People struggle with it because how do they coexist? Well, they end up not in certain ways. You'll see what happens in some of these cities where they work together with the LGBT community, but then once Muslims gain control, then they shun it. So I think one side ultimately does win here. But for now, Mamdani seems to straddle that line between that Marxist communist side and then the Islamist side. And it is dangerous. Make no mistake, these people are not here to make America great. They are here to destroy America. And that's why we have to be working so hard to stop it.
Do you think this is an omen about where the National Democratic Party is going? I mean, New York City is, of course, a little bit unique in our country, but do you think the National Democrat Party is moving in this direction?
Yes, and you can see it in my colleagues. You can see it in the fact that Democrats won't vote to reopen the government. You can see it in all of the Democrats that refuse to condemn Charlie Kirk's assassination. You can see that this radical side, I don't know if it's 10%, 15%, or 20% of the country, they now dominate the discourse of the Democratic Party. The problem we have is 30 years ago, Republicans and Democrats all wanted a successful America. They just disagreed in how to get there. The problem we have with this side of the Democratic Party is they hate America. It is their goal to destroy it. They think it is fundamentally an evil nation on occupied land that we took from indigenous people. They don't like the country, and their goal is to hurt it. And the question we have to figure out is how do we deal and how do we coexist with people whose literal goal is to destroy our country?
And how do we deal with them? How do we coexist with them?
Well, I think it's hard. I mean, I am somewhat pessimistic about the future of the country. I don't know how we coexist with people who are willing to literally not send food stamps to children because they want to give foreign invaders free health care. I mean, the problem is, I don't know. When people don't share the same end point, which is a better, stronger America, when the goal is to hurt America, I believe one side's got to win and one side's got to lose. And I'm going to hope to be on that winning side.
Congressman, you have one of the pieces of legislation that you are working on, Disqualifying Dual Loyalty Act of 2025. And I think this goes actually right to the heart of what we're talking about. The Democrats have imported millions of foreigners, and we now have some of them in Congress who openly pledge their allegiance to foreign powers, whether it be the dictator of Somalia, whether it be Guatemala. I mean, we've all seen the videos of these people saying, my primary loyalty is here. Your bill, I guess, would not allow dual citizens to serve in Congress. Tell us why you think this is important.
Well, look, you can't swear allegiance to two countries at the same time. One of them has to be supreme. And I got tired of being accused of being a dual citizen of Israel. I happen to be Jewish. I'm one of 4 Republican Jews. Never was born in Israel, lived there, didn't visit till I was 35. But because I was Jewish, people always wanted to accuse me of being a dual citizen. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to tell everybody I'm not. And by the way, I agree that if you are a dual citizen, you should not be able to serve because you can't serve two masters. It turns out, I think, that many of the people who are dual citizens are not the Jewish members of Congress. It's many Democrats who come from these other places and want to import the crazy policies from those places to this country. So the bill is very simple. If you're a dual citizen, you can't be in Congress. You got to pick a team.
Yep, and for the folks out there thinking, oh, well, that's terrible. All you got to do is renounce your foreign citizenship,
right.
And then you can run. It's no problem.
Yes.
Congressman, right on this same topic, you have a bill that I think even a few years ago would have been dismissed as just grandstanding, kind of a sideshow. But now we see this community in Texas, they want to build like a Muslim town. We see police departments in this country now with Arabic writing. We see Paterson, New Jersey, Muslim City Council renames Main Street into Palestine Way. This is happening now. And so you have a bill that would address this. It's called the No Shari'a Act. It would prohibit the application of Sharia law in the United States where such application would violate constitutional rights and for other purposes. Let's address first, is this a real issue, Congressman? Is there a real need to address this threat or alleged threat of Sharia law in this country?
Sure. If you listen to the mainstream Muslim imams in their own words on their public broadcasts, they are very clear in what their goal is. It is to conquer the United States and make it part of the Islamic Caliphate. And you can see it. We saw it in Dearborn, where now that it's 55% Muslim, the Muslim mayor told a longtime Christian resident he was no longer welcome there. It's Minneapolis, where they play the call to prayer at 3:30 in the morning. It is a goal to dominate and change the fundamental tenet of the United States. Well, we don't want the Islamic Caliphate to come to the United States. There's 50 countries you can go live in if that's what you want, not here. So my bill would put a hard stop to all of this and say we are a Judeo-Christian nation formed on certain values. The Quran was not one of them. And if you want to live under Sharia law, go home.
Lots of countries where they can live under Sharia law, at least over 50 at last count. So there's plenty of places where they can do that. Congressman, give us some examples of how this might be applied. Like, what are some of the things that you see in Islamic law that wouldn't be compatible, say, with our Judeo-Christian constitution, our biblical traditions?
Well, I think there's many things. I mean, when you have that city in Texas that was going to be created, say you can only be Muslim and live there, you have to agree to abide by Sharia in order to do that. Many of the new blasphemy laws that you hear people talk about, where they say you cannot criticize Islam because that is somehow Islamophobic and that is a blasphemy. It is this creeping thing. It's the forcing to say that noise ordinances apply to everyone except Sharia. I can't go play music outside of my house at 3:30 in the morning. I should not be able to play someone screaming a prayer demanding I go to pray at 3:30 in the morning. The goal is to send a strong, overwhelming message that we are not a Muslim nation. We are never going to be a Muslim nation. And if you want that, that's perfectly fine. Move to one of the 50 countries that do that. We aren't interested in being conquered.
Yeah. Turning to Europe for a moment, Congressman. 10 years ago, people said it was just fear-mongering. Today, we see Mohammed is by far the most popular baby name across most of the Western European capitals. Do we have kind of a warning signs coming from Western Europe about what might happen here if we don't take this serious?
Yes, and that's exactly why I'm doing so much of this. We can see how this movie ends. Look at Britain, one of the great civilizations of the world, which is no longer the United Kingdom. They're now the United Islamic Kingdom, where if you criticize this stuff online, you can get arrested, where they've got migrants just killing people in the streets, where they're on the verge of civil war because of what they have allowed to happen in our country. Make no mistake, those same people want to do the same thing here. So we are 5 or 10 years away from what we have seen in the UK and France, and I don't want that for the United States. Mandani is the first of many that will try to change this country, just like Sadiq Khan has done in London, where all of the traditional Britons have left. We don't want this in America. We have to look at what's happening in these other countries and take a lesson from that.
Yeah, and folks, I've seen a lot of that. It's in Sweden, it's in France, it's in the UK, it's in Germany, it's in Holland. It's very widespread, and I do believe it will come here if we're not careful. Congressman, one of the big talks of the town in D.C. at the moment is, of course, the government shutdown. We understand now that benefits, the food stamps, are going to be running out here very soon. And Democrats are still holding the line, refusing to allow this funding bill to get through, even though it's causing quite a bit of problems. Where do you think this is going, and what does it say about the Democratic Party?
Well, I think I've referenced it before. I think for many Democrats, hurting the country is the goal. It's not a side effect, it's the goal. Keep in mind, keeping the government closed hurts the country. That's a win for them. But even if we gave them what they wanted, $200 billion in free health care for illegal immigrants, hundreds of billions of dollars to hide the failure of Obamacare, all of it borrowed from our children and grandchildren. They're not even bothering to say tax the rich. They're just saying borrow it from the future. That will hurt the country. Everything they're trying to do, the goal is to damage the nation. And so we're just not going to put up with it. And so what we need people to do is, if they live in a state where they're one of the 45 Democrat senators who keep voting to keep the government closed, pick up the phone and call them. And it is my hope that as people get angrier and angrier, as more paychecks are missed, as more food stamps are not sent out, people are going to go, this is nuts. You're doing this for illegal immigrants? And they're going to pick up the call and the phone, and they're going to demand that it stop. But until people get angry and start making those calls and obliterate their phone lines, this may continue.
Yeah. And, Congressman, there's a very severe distinction between what the Democrats are doing here and some of the concerns you have raised. In fact, I've heard you talk about the dangers of this never-ending spending, this unbelievable amount of debt. In fact, I heard you call it one of the biggest threats to our country and the future of our children. So on this note, talk to us about where you see the federal budget. Where should it be going, and how big of a threat is this constant spending?
Well, I believe the greatest existential threat to the United States is not Russia, it's not China, it's not Muslim terror, it's our inability to spend within our means. We're at $37 trillion in debt, and I know that in the life of my 2 sons, our country will collapse if we do not deal with it. So Democrats want to make that problem worse. They want to throw another $1.5 trillion onto the dole. I'm not willing to do that. We've taken some steps. President Trump's working family tax cut bill was the largest cut in discretionary spending in American history. But there's a lot more to do, and we can't congratulate ourselves until we are spending less money than we are bringing in. And the problem is, today we are not doing that. If I leave Congress not having helped solve that problem, I will have failed. Because I don't worry about the judgment of the voters. They won't be at my funeral, whenever that is, which I hope is not for a long time. But my kids will be. And if they see the sacrifices our family has made and they have made, and I haven't solved that problem to put America on a surer footing, they won't forgive me for that. And that's what I worry about when I lay awake at night.
Yeah, I share your concerns in a major way. Now, I've heard you talk about your children before, and actually that's what inspired you to get involved in the political process in the first place. You and I are both here in Florida, and of course some crazy things were going on in the public school system, and you were told basically, get out of it, it's not your business, and that wasn't an acceptable answer to you. So you went to Tallahassee and fought really hard. Just talk to us about, why did you get into politics? What was going on in the schools that was so disturbing to you? And you did fight really hard against the LGBT madness that was in our public schools here in Florida. We've gotten some of that out here in Florida, but of course nationally that's still a problem. So just talk to us about all of that, how you got involved, why education is such a critical issue.
So I was a software entrepreneur. That's what I did for 22 years. I was blessed. I had a great deal of success, and I retired at 40. And 8 months after I retired, my oldest son was 6 years old. He was in first grade, and he came home from school and was told that 9 plus 6 did not equal 15 because he did not do it the Common Core way. And when I went to his school and I complained, I was told I wasn't qualified to have an opinion about his education because I did not have a degree in academic administration. Now, I have 2 degrees from Harvard, and they're not worth that much, especially today, but I ought to be able to handle first grade math. And so I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to do something about it. In my business career, I changed industries. I said, I can go do something about education. So I went to Tallahassee and I made a few promises as it related to education. One was I was going to change how math was taught, and I changed that in my 3rd year in the legislature. The second, I said, is no parent is ever going to be told they're not qualified to have an opinion about their kid's education. And in my 5th year in the legislature, we passed the Parental Bill of Rights. And the third thing I promised is that kids should be able to go to private school if the public schools fail them. They failed my son. I put him in private school, but I could afford it because I made a lot of money. And so I wanted universal school choice. And in my 7th year, we got that done. And so I was very proud of it. That's what I wanted to work on in Tallahassee. But I saw other problems as well. The big thing I did relating to LGBTQ is I learned when I was in my 3rd term in the legislature that teenage girls were being told their problems would all be solved if they cut their body parts off. And I said, that's mutilation. It's horrific. It's unbelievable. This transgender nonsense. So I ran the bill, got assaulted multiple times over it, but I ran the bill that banned mutilating transgender surgeries on children and said no more sterilizing drugs on children. Look, if you're 30 years old and you want to cut your body parts off and take all these crazy drugs, be my guest. Don't ask me to pay for them, but be my guest. But doing that to a 12 or a 13 or 14-year-old is child abuse. And so when I was in the legislature, I was the tip of the spear on a lot of those really controversial things. And I think that's why 2 weeks after I got elected to the Florida Senate, the president asked me to run for Congress and bring that same sort of brand of unforgiving, unafraid conservatism to Congress.
Yeah, absolutely. Congressman, I do want to ask you, you got one more bill that I want to bring up today before we run out of time here. It is the H.R. 5312 Jail Act. This would authorize civil actions against judges who allow repeat offenders to go out and commit more crimes. Talk to us about why you think that's important.
Well, when we saw that poor woman killed in North Carolina, I thought to myself, this is insane. If you're a bartender and you serve too many drinks to someone at the bar, and they drive home, and when they're driving home they have an accident and they kill someone, you get arrested. Not just the drunk driver, but you, the bartender. But if you're a judge and you let someone out of jail over and over and over again who is a criminal and a danger to society, and they hurt someone, you never get held accountable. And you don't care. You get to hide behind your bailiff and your armed security. I said, that's not right. Judges should not be treated different than bartenders. And so I filed a bill that said if a judge lets a violent criminal out of jail and they do something bad, the person who's hurt or their family, if God forbid they're killed, can sue that judge personally. People said, that'll have a chilling effect. Judges may not be willing to let as many people out of jail. And I said, that's the point. That is the goal is to stop this, and hopefully we'll get that bill over the finish line.
Are you optimistic, Congressman, about the direction that our country's heading? I know you're one of the newest members in Congress. You're already on some important committees, House Foreign Affairs, Education, and I know some good things are happening under Donald Trump. But are you optimistic over the long term that we can turn around some of these major issues that we've talked about, Islamization, the indoctrination of children, the Islamization of the country, the open borders, the never-ending spending? Can we turn this around before it's too late?
Well, I will start by saying this. Thank God for Donald Trump. I mean, I believe that had he not won the election in 2024, we would be done. I cannot imagine 4 more years of that Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. I think America would be destroyed. I think Donald Trump is our last best hope to save America, and he's doing extraordinary work. The challenge we have is Congress has to pass laws to back it up, and what happens in 3.5 years when he is done being our president. So I am very concerned about the future of the country, because as bad as I thought it would be when I came to Washington, it is worse, and it is driven by what I talked about before, that a material percentage of the Democrats that I serve with hate the country that they serve. And trying to figure out how do we coexist with people like Ilhan Omar who think America is an evil place. A lot of these so-called progressives, it's very, very hard. And we're going to have to figure out how to do it. And I will admit, I am very pessimistic. I was a student of American history. We fought 2 civil wars when we could not settle our differences peaceably. 1776 was a civil war between British subjects. 1861, the American Civil War, was a civil war between Americans. And I worry that with Democrats legitimizing political violence and saying they hate America, we could end up right back there. So I am very pessimistic, but I'm also glad that God put me here in this place at this time so I could fight those fights, because I believe he puts us all where he wants us to be. He wanted Donald Trump to be president, and at least for now, he wants me here fighting this fight in Congress, and I'm honored to be able to do it.
Amen. Well, thank you for what you're doing, Congressman. Folks, if you're not following Representative Randy Fine on Twitter yet, go to our X. Sorry, it's Rep Fine. Very entertaining. You're going to have a blast. His newsletter is excellent as well. I get that too. Congressman Randy Fine, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for what you're doing, and I hope we can talk to you again soon.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. All right, folks, that's all we have time for today here on Conversations That Matter. Thanks for tuning in. God bless you all.